What's good, everyone? Welcome back to another video. Today we're jumping back into the Go Battle League arena with a team featuring the Pokemon Golisopod. Golisopod is a bug water Pokemon that rocks Shadow Claw as a fast move, as well as X-Scissor and Liquidation on the charge moves. If you haven't heard about Liquidation yet, it's a water type charge move that was introduced this season that deals 84 damage at the cost of 45 energy, along with a 30% chance to debuff the opponent's defense by one stage, making this move extremely powerful against the Open Great League meta. Today we're running Golisopod in an ABB line alongside Sir Registeel in the lead and Araquanid on the safe swap. The idea with this line, and all ABB lines honestly, is to draw out our closer's hardest counters by swapping into Araquanid, which gives Golisopod the best chance to sweep endgame. I had an insane amount of fun and some roller coaster battles running this team. So without further ado, let's jump right in and check out some of those battles. Hopping straight into the first battle, we have our Registeel on the lead against the opponent's Walrein. This is a fantastic matchup for Registeel, as it will be resisting the opponent's fast move of Powder Snow as well as its charge move of Icicle Spear. Walrein will be reaching the Earthquake after throwing 9 Powder Snows, and we will respect this damage by expending our first shield. Here we're going for the debuff. It's kind of unnecessary. We should have caught that first Earthquake onto one of our back Pokemon, as this is an ABB line, and both Golisopod and Araquanid will be resisting all moves thrown by the Registeel. We are able to catch an Earthquake here, absorbing all that damage. It does essentially nothing to our Araquanid, as Araquanid is extremely tanky, and we're able to bait out the opponent's Stunfisk. Stunfisk will be dealing super effective damage with its Rock Slides here, but Araquanid, being the tank that it is able to absorb that rather easily. We will be able to fire off this Bubble Beam, and now we will be surviving the opponent's Rock Slide here, meaning we don't have to shield. Araquanid taking the Rock Slide, able to survive with a decent amount of HP in the red here, firing off another Bubble Beam. This Bubble Beam will be securing another debuff, and we snipe with our Registeel, going for the Focus Blast, aiming for the knockout, and we get the opponent's final shield. As the Galarian Stunfisk is double debuffed here, we don't have to respect the damage, as Registeel is itself an extreme tank. We will be outpacing the opponent here, able to reach the Zap Cannon. In this instance, I chose to throw the Zap Cannon, anticipating a potential swap in by the opponent, but they do not catch it, and instead, we don't get the knockout onto the Galarian Stunfisk. This might work out a little bit better, as it might give us the opportunity to come in and swap or to farm with our Golisopod. However, Galarian Stunfisk does nuke our Registeel, as the opponent is able to get to a final Rock Slide. We're not going to respect this, as the opponent hasn't revealed their final Pokemon in the back yet, so we're not going to respect that super effective but double debuffed Rock Slide. We reach the X-Scissor here against the Walrein and are able to reach a second X-Scissor before the Walrein gets to a move here. X-Scissor is an extremely weak move, and we are not able to knock out the Walrein. And here I make a critical mistake, as I'm telling myself this move is going to be resisted, but we are getting extremely low on our Golisopod and have next to 0 health on our Araquanid, as the opponent brings in their final Pokemon and reveals it to be Whimsicott. And this is pretty much a GG, as we don't have any more health on our Golisopod, and we have very little health remaining on our Araquanid, and even if we did, we would be getting severely outpaced by the Fairy Wind Whimsicott. So that's a GG to the opponent. Well played, Whimsicott, able to call game. Thank you for the match. Hopping into our next battle, we have a terrible lead, as we are faced with Hitmonbruce Lee on the lead, swapping immediately into our Araquanid and met by the opponent's Raticate, a Alolan Raticate. This is another misplay, which you'll hear me say you should be associating me with by now, but we should be firing off this Bubble Beam immediately, and instead we continue farming energy and throw on the CMP tie, meaning that the opponent's Crunch did more damage than it otherwise would have. Now that the opponent is debuffed, we don't have to respect this Crunch damage, as we are able to easily survive, but the opponent does debuff our defense. Araquanid able to reach the back-to-back Bubble Beam here, and this will be putting pressure on the opponent as they do expend their first shield, and Araquanid is able to reach a second Bubble Beam, putting immense pressure on the opponent and instead getting the knockout with a final bug bite onto the Alolan Raticate. Araquanid successfully flipping switch here, allowing this Golisopod to be realigned against the Hitmonchan, respecting the damage from these Thunder Punches by expending our first shield, but we do get baited by the opponent. That is extremely unfortunate, as they are now able to reach a buffed Thunder Punch. We're forced to expend our final shield and are going to attempt to take the opponent's final shield with this X-Scissor shield bait, and we are able to effectively take the opponent's final shield. But at this point, I hesitate. I am unsure of whether we are going to be able to get to the liquidation, and as such, I fire off the X-Scissor, securing that damage onto the Hitmonchan. But this will be Hitmonchan knocking out our Golisopod, forcing the Registeel to come in, and the opponent reveals their final Pokemon in the back, being a Dragonair. Dragonair is going to be dealing resisted damage with its Dragon Breath as well as with its Body Slam, and even though these moves are resisted, it will be putting immense pressure on the Registeel, as it is on its lonesome now. Registeel firing off the Focus Blast, getting the Dragonair into the red, going for the aggressive farm down. Will the Dragonair be able to fire off another charge move? And they are, but it's the resisted Body Slam as Registeel gets the farm down onto the Dragonair. Does the Hitmonchan have a move? They do not, as Registeel is able to throw the Zap Cannon and secure the match. Registeel calls game. Well played by the opponent. Thank you for the match. I feel like this is as good of a time as any to say that even though this is a Golisopod showcase or a double bug showcase, Registeel is an absolute monster in the Great League. It's highly effective in the lead. It's a highly effective Say Swap, especially in an ABB type line with double steal. It's also a highly effective closer. This thing is just great wherever you have it. And if you're building a team, Registeel is an awesome place to start just because it has such great coverage on the meta with its extremely hard-hitting charge moves of Zap Cannon and Focus Blast, which are the moves that it commonly runs. And it's able to reach those moves extremely quickly due to the crazy energy generation that it receives from the fast move of Lock On. But here we see us swapping into our Araquanid, taking super effective damage from the Dunsparce. Dunsparce, another Pokemon with great coverage on the meta, but it does not hit that hard, so we don't have to respect this damage from our Araquanid, and we are able to absorb that Rock Slide, going now for this Bubble Beam, putting shield pressure or pressuring the health of the Dunsparce, and we are able to secure a shield. As the Dunsparce is now debuffed, we can bring in our Registeel and go for the aggressive farm down. Will Registeel be able to lock on down? Not before the Dunsparce is able to reach another Drill Run. Drill Run doing some significant damage on the Registeel. Registeel going for the farm down and not able to get it, instead having to expend a shield here, as Lock On is not able to secure the farm down before Dunsparce reaches another charge move. But we have Registeel throwing Zap Cannon into the opponent's Trevenant, and this is an extremely tough matchup. Trevenant resists all the moves that Registeel has. Opponent swaps into their Charm Ninetales, which Golisopod will not be appreciating here. We throw the Liquidation, get the defense drop onto the Ninetales, farming up to another charge move, but unable to get there before Ninetales is able to reach the Weather Ball. As our Registeel is extremely low and remembering the sins of our past, we expend our final shield there and go for the aggressive farm down, but are unable to farm down as there is a simultaneous KO and our Registeel is met in the back by a Trevenant. I do not delay the inevitable there and instead allow the Trevenant to call game. Well played by the opponent. Thank you for the match. And we're hopping straight into our next match with Avalugg. That is some cold spice by the opponent. Avalugg on the lead against Registeel. We go for the Zap Cannon, hoping to get the debuff. Avalugg is running with Ice Fang as well as with Body Slam and Avalanche. None of those moves concern Registeel at all, as we do swap into our Araquanid into the opponent's Goodra. Goodra is going to be oppressive with this fast move of Dragon Breath, but unfortunately, Goodra currently rocking the charge moves of Muddy Water and Power Whip, which leave a lot to be desired. Goodra is going to be an absolute beast once it gets a legacy move, but until then, it's an interesting spice pick, but unfortunately it just pales in comparison to some of the other dragon picks in the Great and Ultra Leagues. Here we have our Araquanid firing off a Bug Buzz into the Goodra, securing the knockout and met by the opponent's Greedent. This is a fantastic matchup for us, as Araquanid is able to reach another Bubble Beam before getting Bullet Seeded down. Greedent secures the bullet seed down, but we are now able to align our Registeel with the opponent's Greedent, as Greedent is going to be firing off a crunch, and we mistakenly shield this, which we shouldn't have. When you're shielding an opponent who's throwing crunch, you should never shield the first crunch if at all possible, just in case they do get that debuff, which I made the mistake of, although we did not get the debuff, allowing this next crunch to go through, and they do that time secure the debuff onto our Registeel. Even though we are debuffed, Registeel does not respect this Greedent in any way. We take that charge move like it barely tickles, and our Registeel is able to reach this next Focus Blast, which will be knocking out the opponent's Greedent. As the opponent only has one Pokemon remaining and we want to avoid any crazy shenanigans from happening, we will swap from our Registeel into our final Pokemon, being the Golisopod. Opponent firing off that Avalanche, and it does not concern our Golisopod in the slightest, as Golisopod reaching the Liquidation here, firing off the Liquidation, doing some significant damage to the opponent, now securing this battle by expending one shield here, which is the Body Slam, but now able to reach another Liquidation. Could have thrown the X Scissors there, probably would have been enough to secure the match, but wanted to guarantee the KO, as our Golisopod calls game. Well played by the opponent. Thank you for the match. So there we saw Golisopod getting to flex its muscles a little bit, firing off those Liquidations into the opponent. As we hop into our next battle, we have Registeel on the lead against the Emolga, and the opponent swaps into their Trevenant, and we counter swap into our Araquanid. This was a misplay by me, as we definitely should have swapped into our Golisopod, which would be dealing super effective damage with its fast move of Shadow Claw. However, all that being said, we do reach this Bug Buzz on our Araquanid, firing off the Bug Buzz into the opponent and securing the knockout. So scratch all of that. What an amazing play by your boy. Just kidding. Swap into your Golisopod, please. As Araquanid reaches this Bubble Beam here, we'll be debuffing the opponent's Emolga. Emolga takes that Bubble Beam, now debuffed, going for the aggressive Thunder Shock down, able to Thunder Shock down at 100 energy here, swaps into the Galarian Stunfisk in the back. This matchup is going to be extremely tricky for us, as Golisopod will be firing off these Liquidations, hoping to get a debuff, and we do get the defense drop on the opponent's Stunfisk. Stunfisk has built up past the Rock Slide, will be dealing super effective damage onto our Golisopod here. We shield the first one, choosing not to respect this second one, as Golisopod will be able to survive one more Rock Slide with the next one KO, being a KO. Golisopod reaches another Liquidation, securing the opponent's final shield. Will Golisopod be able to get to another charge move? No, they are not. And at this point, I am considering my options, and I realize that even though this is a Golisopod showcase, our only win condition here is to let the Golisopod go down, bring in our Registeel, take all of these charge moves from the Emolga, charge up to 100 energy or just about that, and then battle the Stunfisk that will be coming in. So Registeel here builds up to about 90 energy, fires off the Zap Cannon, knocks out the Emolga, as we are greeted by the opponent Stunfisk. Stunfisk has to reach 2 moves here. Stunfisk firing off its first move, as we are just about at our Focus Blast. This is the Rock Slide, which will be knocking us out, but we are at the Focus Blast. And there you have it, folks. Registeel once again calls game. Well played by the opponent. Thank you for the match. Registeel once again is just such a strong Pokemon with excellent coverage, especially with a 1-0 shield advantage, has pretty much winning matchups against the entire meta, as Registeel here is met by the opponent's Frostlass. This is an interesting matchup for us, as Registeel will not appreciate a Shadow Ball, but will be able to deal some hefty damage onto the Frostlass. Given that we are running the ABB line, we do our best to catch an Avalanche onto or a Shadow Ball onto our Araquanid, but we are unable to do so, as the opponent now reaching back-to-back charge moves, and it is the back-to-back Shadow Ball, as Araquanid is now extremely low. The opponent swaps into their Mandibuzz. Mandibuzz will not appreciate this Bug Buzz, as it deals a decent amount of damage and gets the defense drop as well. Registeel will now be coming into this Mandibuzz, and although Mandibuzz is extremely tanky, it hits like a toy car, meaning we don't have to respect these charge moves at all. Dark Pulse will be hitting a little bit harder than Foul Play does, but even so, we farm up a significant amount of energy, 100 energy at that, fire off the Zap Cannon, get rid of the Mandibuzz, and quickly swap into our Golisopod to greet the opponent's Medicham. Opponent should be swapping out here, but they are rocking with their Medicham for the time being, reaching this charge move, firing it off into our Golisopod, and it is the Psychic. The opponent full sending the Psychic, and we are able to absorb all of that damage by expending our first shield. Opponent then swaps out into their Frostlass, and we do secure the defense drop, as this X-Scissor now should be enough to knock out the opposing Frostlass. Opponent expends their final shield, and I must say it is a great feeling when your X-Scissor is able to claim a shield. Opponent baits our final shield by firing off an avalanche, as we then bring in our Registeel to greet and get the farm down on this Frostlass. Unable to do so before the Frostlass reaches another avalanche, but Registeel is just about out of Zap Cannon and will be able to reach the Zap Cannon to call game against this Medicham. Well played by the opponent. Thank you for the match. So that's about 3 matches in a row where Registeel is able to call game, secure the win for us, but must say that the double bug backline is putting in some significant work here. As we're hopping straight into our next matchup, this is another interesting lead, as Registeel will be dealing significant damage, able to one-shot this opposing Sandslash, Shadow Sandslash at that, with its Focus Blast, but we are able to catch a charge move onto our Araquanid, and it is the Drill Run. Opponent full sending, not wasting any time with any baits, as the opponent may be confused and unsure of what this Pokemon is. Araquanid is not the most common Pokemon in today's meta, as they are not able to even touch us with any of their charge moves here, and probably should be switching out. But regardless, we are able to reach a Bubble Beam and fire off that Bubble Beam into the opponent, securing the debuff, as we now, even more so than before, do not have to respect any charge move that the opponent is throwing at us. Opponent swaps into Azumarill, and we are going to greet this Azumarill with a Bug Buzz. This is a misplay by me, as Azumarill will be resisting the Bug Buzz, and we should probably be securing the debuff, as I do recognize that now, by throwing the Bubble Beams. Before we get farmed down, will Azumarill be able to farm down? No, we throw on the CMP tie, as the Azumarill is now firing off this Ice Beam, which is heavily resisted and debuffed, but still able to knock out our Araquanid, as we now come in with our Registeel, firing off this Zap Cannon, which will be putting significant HP pressure on the opponent, as Registeel does secure the knockout. Opponent swapping back into their Shadow Sandslash, and we are once again confronted in this situation where, as we have our featured Pokemon Golisopod waiting in the wings with a 2 shield buffer. As we will be expending this first shield, we don't want to end up like we did in the first battle, where we are left with a shield at the end. So we're expending that first shield, even though it's a nice punch, able to reach this liquidation on the opposing Quagsire. This will be a tough endgame, as Quagsire is able to deal super effective damage onto both of our Pokemon with the Stone Edge on our Golisopod, as well as on our Registeel with its Mud Bombs. We are going to expend a shield here, as the opponent successfully baits us with a Mud Bomb, but Golisopod is able to reach another charge move, even though it's only the X-Scissor. Will this be baiting the opponent's final shield? And it is, as we throw on the CMP tie. Quagsire shielding up that resisted X-Scissor, firing off the Mud Bomb to KO our Golisopod, and now we have all shields down in the back. Quagsire versus a healthy Registeel, and even though this is a brutal matchup for Registeel, it will be able to secure this matchup with a Focus Blast. Focusing as it blasts off the opponent's Quagsire, able to get the farm down, and Registeel once again calls game. Well played by the opponent. Thank you for the match. Hopping straight into our next battle, we have Registeel on the lead against Trevenant. We saw this matchup earlier. It is an extremely difficult matchup for Registeel, as it will be having all of its moves as resist, and not a situation that we want to play out on the lead. Therefore, we're swapping into our Araquanid, as the opponent throws a Seed Bomb and then dips into their Azumarill. Having played this situation earlier, considering the sins of our past, we're not going to throw the Bug Buzz, and instead we'll be securing these debuffs with the Bubble Beam. Azumarill reaching its first charge move here, firing off the Play Rough into our Araquanid, and that does about 20% damage onto our Araquanid, as the opponent's Azumarill is debuffed and now double debuffed. Araquanid farming up energy, continuing to farm against this Azumarill, able to reach a third Bubble Beam. This will be significantly debuffing the opponent and not allowing them to bubble us down. forcing them to have to expend some energy here, which they realize and are now throwing energy into our Araquanid. It is the Ice Beam, and we are able to live, but we overtap the Bubble Beam. I actually was not expecting to live there, as the opponent immediately swaps into their Galarian Stunfisk, and we counter swap our Registeel into our Golisopod. Galarian Stunfisk is slightly ahead on energy here, and we are not able to outpace them to the first charge move, as we do expend our first shield, hoping to claim a shield here on the opponent's Stunfisk, and we are able to do so while not getting the debuff. As we were behind on energy, we're looking to bait the opponent's shield, and we are able to successfully X-scissor bait the Galarian Stunfisk's final shield, as we will now be expending our final shield, matching shields here, hoping to get to this liquidation, as we know we will survive this Rock Slide and be able to reach another charge move. Rock Slide gets us in the red extremely low, but not before our Golisopod can reach this liquidation. Liquidation gets the Stunfisk low, as the Stunfisk gets the debuff, and the opponent counter swaps, matching our swap from Registeel onto the Trevenant, and this game is looking extremely difficult for us now. The play for us may have been to go for the farm down against the Galarian Stunfisk. I was fearful that the opponent would swap into their Trevenant and farm down our Golisopod and essentially call GG there. But now we are able to reach this Focus Blast, which will be knocking out the opponent's Trevenant, as Registeel is able to outpace the Trevenant. As the opponent now considering their options, they have a low Azumarill and a 1 HP Galarian Stunfisk. Stunfisk able to reach another charge move. Will this be enough to knock out our Registeel? It is the Rock Slide, and Rock Slide is not enough to knock us out, as we do come back in with our Golisopod, but not before the opponent is able to reach a charge move with their Azumarill. Ice Beam resisted but able to knock us out, and Azumarill is able to bubble down our Registeel. That was an extremely close match, as Azumarill calls game. Well played by the opponent. Thank you for the match. We have a brutal lead here with our Registeel onto the opponent's Swampert. Registeel should be looking to swap out of here sooner rather than later, and we do successfully catch the charge move onto our Spider. Question is this the Earthquake? And it is the Earthquake that does next to no damage, as the opponent now greets our Araquanid with a Registeel. Registeel doesn't have to worry about any of the moves that Araquanid has for it, as this Bubble Beam will do about 2 HP, maybe 3. As Registeel able to reach this charge move, it will be the Zap Cannon, will be knocking us out just about, but no Araquanid lives, and that may have been a negative for us, although able to reach another Bubble Beam as Registeel goes for the lock on down. Registeel now at a significant amount of energy, but not able to reach another charge move before our Registeel reaches the Focus Blast. Focus Blast able to get the Registeel down to 1 HP as our Registeel gets the lock on down. Opponent brings in the Swampert. Swampert not taking any chances this time, building up to the Earthquake, immediately firing off the Hydro Cannon. Hydro Cannon does a respectable amount of damage, as Registeel will not be able to take another. We do reach this Focus Blast here, claiming the first shield of the opponent, swapping into our Golisopod, and we are met by yet another Galarian Stunfisk in the back. However, Golisopod is ahead on energy here as we fire off this liquidation, and it does do hefty damage onto the Stunfisk and also grabs the defense drop. Golisopod expending the first shield here, now able to reach another liquidation before the opponent is able to reach a second Rock Slide. Liquidation able to knock out the Galarian Stunfisk, as we are now greeted by the opponent's Swampert. Swampert is extremely hard hitting, but even then we are able to resist these charge moves and will be able to take 2 Hydro Cannons. Golisopod reaches a liquidation, firing off this liquidation into the opponent, securing the defense drop, and that may be critical for the opponent. Opponent firing off another Hydro Cannon, and it does get us low, but we are able to survive as Registeel now has 1 shield, able to reach this Focus Blast, which will be blasting off the opponent. Time for bed, young man, as Registeel calls game. Well played by the opponent. Thank you for the match. Hopping into our next battle, and this may be our final battle here, as we have Registeel on the lead in a mirror match against Registeel. This is a tough situation, as I don't want to play this matchup out and instead want to catch hopefully a Focus Blast onto our Araquanid, but I am unable to do so, instead being counter swapped by the opponent's Sableye. Sableye itself, a fantastic generalist in this meta, as it does have good matchups against pretty much all of the Pokemon besides Noctowl, but we don't have to talk about that. As Araquanid, it is able to secure a debuff onto the opponent's Sableye. As Sableye reaches a foul play, we'll be firing off this foul play. As it is debuffed, we are able to easily survive that. Going for the Bug Buzz here. This Bug Buzz will be threatening to knock out the opponent's Sableye if they do not shield. However, they do expend a shield and are able to get the Shadow Claw down onto our Araquanid. RIP to the Water Spider, have a good rest as we bring in our Golisopod and are immediately greeted by the opponent's foul play. Sableye throwing off this foul play, not doing a respectable amount of damage. Golisopod doesn't need to respect the first one, but we will respect the second one. As Golisopod expending its first shield here, going for the aggressive Shadow Claw down, and is able to do so at 25% health, but at 100 energy. We're continuing to farm on our Golisopod like it is Stardew Valley, swapping back into our Registeel, firing off this super effective Zap Cannon on the opponent's Azumarill, and are greeted by this Focus Blast, yes, from the opponent's Registeel. Our Registeel now deep in the red. We need to get to another charge move. Registeel able to get to a charge move, but this is dangerous territory as the opponent's Registeel may be able to lock on down, but they are not content on doing so, instead firing off this energy, and I am okay with letting our Registeel go at this point. As we do have 100 energy, swapping back into our Golisopod. Opponent now all shields down, not able to expend any shields there. Will we get to the liquidation before the opponent is able to reach to another charge move? And we are. This is CMP tied. That was fantastic counting. Will it be able to knock out? No. As Registeel is able to live on the blessings of its ancestors. And at this point, that's pretty much a GG as we expend our final shield there. We're going to fight the good fight, throwing off this liquidation into the opponent's Azumarill. Azumarill will be resisting this damage. We do get the D drop, but unfortunately, Azumarill is able to reach another charge move, and Azumarill calls game. Well played by the opponent. Thank you for the match. We see our 3-2 set and overall had a fantastic time running our ABB double bug Golisopod line today. Golisopod is a pretty strong Pokemon, especially in neutral matchups, but it definitely does have the possibility to thrive in ABB type lines like the one we ran today. Liquidation is an awesome move as we were able to secure a lot of debuffs today, and the damage that it outputs is also pretty significant. So overall, I was really happy to see that a cool Pokemon like Golisopod was able to become part of the Great League meta, even if it's not extremely overpowered or anything like that. Some spice is always nice, and I'm glad that we were able to discover that while running Golisopod today. Please feel free to leave a comment down below if you have any Pokemon recommendations on anything you'd like to see run, or if you have any line recommendations, if there's something that's been working out really well for you and you'd like to see a noob like me try it out, please let me know in the comments down below. But that's going to be all from me. Thanks for stopping by. Remember to enjoy the small things. Peace.